When you insert images in a web page, what actually happens is that you insert a link to each image in the HTML. The image and the text remain in separate files, but when the page loads into the browser, images and text are presented as a coherent whole. I've got open index.html in the Pacific Highway case study. If you need copies of these files, you can find them in the folder for this lesson in the Working with Images folder in the course assets. And if you expand the images folder, you can see there's a pile of images there ready for you to use. Dreamweaver has several different ways to insert an image. One of them is from the Insert panel. In the Common category, you can select Image. Also in the Insert menu, Image and Image. And the keyboard shortcut is Ctrl-Alt-I on Windows, Command-Option-I on a Mac. But perhaps the easiest way to insert an image is to drag and drop. Let's go to the Files panel. You can drag directly from the Files panel. Normally, Dreamweaver isn't a drag and drop program, but this is one exception. So I'm going to select BigSur1.jpg and then just drag it to the beginning of this paragraph here, fog rolling off the sea, and release my mouse button. And that's inserted the image. Let's just scroll down to see it. If you've used a previous version of Dreamweaver, you'll notice that the Image Tag Accessibility Attributes dialog box no longer appears when you insert an image. This prompted you to add alternate text for the benefit of screen readers for the blind and search engines. Dreamweaver now expects you to use the Property Inspector to add alternate text, and it's down here in this Alt field that you add the alternative text. So I'm going to type some text in here to describe the image. Fog rolling off the sea on Big Sur. While we're looking at the Property Inspector, notice that Dreamweaver automatically inserts the width and the height of the image. But what you've probably noticed is that the bottom of the image is flush with the first line of text. This is because images are treated as inline elements. In the past, you could use HTML attributes, align, vspace and hspace, to flow text around the image. These days you need to do it with CSS. So let's just close the Files panel for the moment and use the CSS Designer panel to create a class to apply to this image. Select highway.css and then click the plus button in the Selectors panel. And the selector, I'm going to make a class, so it'll be dot and then float left, all as one word. And as that class name suggests, I'm going to use the float property, which is in the Layout section of the Properties pane. It's just down here, and make it left. Now nothing has happened to the text or the image at the moment because I haven't applied that class to the image. The image is still selected in the document window, so in the class menu in the Property Inspector, open that and select float left. And the text immediately flows around the image, but you can see that the text is bunched right up against the side of the image, so what we need to do is to add a little bit of a margin on the right hand side. So in the Properties pane of the CSS Designer, let's go up to Margin and start scrubbing by holding down the mouse button and dragging to the right. I reckon that about 10 pixels is good, and as I release my mouse button we get that nice little gap between the image and the text. But what if you want the text on the other side? Well, that's simple. Create a different class called float right. So we'll do that. Click the plus button in the Selectors pane, dot float right, all as one word. And then we need to find the float property, make that right. And of course we'll need to have the margin on the other side, on the left hand side. So add a 10 pixel margin on the left hand side. There we go. And with the image still selected, change the class from float left to float right. And it moves to the other side. So those are the basics of inserting images in a web page. As you'll see in a later lesson, you can also use CSS to insert background images. As a general rule, use background images for decorative elements, but embed the image in the HTML if it's an important part of the page content. Use the Property Inspector to add alternate text for the benefit of non-visual browsers, such as screen readers for the blind and search engines, and use CSS to float the image to the right or the left by creating a special class.